Hello, I'm Refashionista Sheri, and this is my lovely Mastador Skelly, and this adorable cropped blazer, I guess, began life just this morning as a very, very vintage, very, very much too tight dress. So you know what? Let's jump right in and see how I transformed it. For this fast and fancy project, all you need is a vintage button-up dress that's a bit too small for you, your seam ripper, scissors, and your sewing gear. Because this is so very vintage, we of course have to do some awesome vintage tag appreciation. And through my research, I discovered that this brand, Eastex, was a British brand that was around from the late 50s to the mid 1980s. And this particular logo that they used was most popular in the 70s. So because this is the logo used, and this is 100% polyester, and it's using care letters instead of the symbols, we can pretty much date this to be sometime in the mid-70s. And I just think that is so very cool. And while polyester isn't great for warmer months, it is really awesome for when it's going to cool off eventually. The very first thing that I'm going to do with this dress is remove the buttons, and luckily one of them already just kind of fell off. But these buttons here, these remaining three, are just purely decorative, and that's totally unnecessary, so I'm going to take them off and put them in my stash. Now, because I'm really not a fan of faux pockets, these are going to come off next. Now that I have those extra useless buttons removed and those flippy, flappy, fake pockets, I'm going to chop it to my desired length for my finished kind of a blazer look, plus a few centimeters for seam allowance, of course. Okay, so if this fit me properly, I could actually be done right now, but you can see, like, I think the circulation is getting cut off in my arms, and I have no hope of doing up these top buttons, and these bottom ones, they're like within an inch of their life to popping off there. So we definitely have to go and upsize this. If you don't need to upsize, you can be totally done now, because polyester fabric has the wonderful ability to not fray. So when you chop it, you don't necessarily have to hem it if you don't want to. Before I chop up my sides and create my upsizing side panels, I have to grab that chopped bottom and make sure that I have enough fabric to create my side panels. And luckily, if I go all the way down, matching everything up, it definitely is going to give me enough for my side panels, plus a few centimeters for seam allowance. Now, if you are in a situation where this isn't going to work for you, the very first thing you need to try is just flip that chopped bottom, because it's actually longer this way. And most of the time, look at that, you will have even more fabric if you just flip it. And you know what? What is my motto? Perfection is the enemy of good enough. And you know what else? Having a side panel that is slightly quirky and maybe not going the exact same way as the original pattern makes your garment even more uniquely you. Now all I have to do is open up these side seams from the bottom hem area all the way up through the sleeve hem. So the sides are going to be completely open. So I'm interrupting myself because I have a quick question here, and maybe you can help me. This is now the third vintage dress that I have encountered that the seams are stitched with it. This is like plastic. It's like fishing line, and I really have to fight to get through it with my seam ripper or bust out my scissors. Was this a thing back in the day in like 50s, 60s, 70s? Did they actually use like plastic, very sturdy fishing line, or was this some type of thread that they used for polyester? I don't know. Please let me know if you know the answer. So I have both of my sides totally open from the bottom all the way up through the sleeve cuff. Now it's time to create my upsizing panels. So now I have my chopped bottom, and I'm just noticing it is made out of 3 panels. And if I measure these 3 panels, they are all about 24, 25-ish, yes, centimeters, which means I can simply remove 2 of these panels and then add them to use them as my side panels. That is so easy. But even better than that, and you know, as a refashionista, I love it when I don't have to do a lot to refashion a garment. And this already has the finished hem on it. So I'm going to use this end to put it with my already finished sleeve end, and then I absolutely will not have to do any sleeve hemming at all because this is hemmed, and we'll be off to the races. So I'm going to go remove 2 of these panels. And now I have 2 absolutely perfectly matching sized side panels. And better yet, they all have this lovely permanent vintage crease here, so I don't have to do any kind of ironing, which, I mean, you shouldn't iron polyester anyway, but it's usually okay if you iron on a very low heat and put a cotton towel or handkerchief or something like that over top of it. You can actually iron polyester, but again, low heat, and protect it with some kind of cotton covering before you iron. Right. Anyway, as I was saying, I'm very pleased with this, and I now actually have quite a bit of scraps left over, and I'm wondering, what do you think I should make out of this? This for sure I could make into a bag, including the strap. There's more than enough left. Plus I have those cute faux pockets as well. So please leave me a comment. Let me know down below what you would like me to make out of this, and if you would love for me to share a tutorial. And of course, the wackier the suggestions, the better. And we're nearly done making this lovely cropped blazer-ish garment here. So I have my top of the dress all open, and it is inside out, and I have my panel, and I just noticed that this panel has a slight kind of triangular shape to it, and it's actually wider on the hem, of course, which, if you remember, I'm going to be putting this hem together with the sleeve hem, so I will absolutely have more than enough comfortable upsize here for my arms to fit in. And because it is a slight triangle, getting a little bit smaller at the bottom, hopefully it'll give a little bit of a tailored fit. We'll see when it's done. But as I said, we have the dress part inside out, and I am simply going to line up the right sides here as always. And I know sometimes it's really easy to get distracted and you end up sewing things the wrong way, which I literally did in the last tutorial. And then you have to start all over. So pay attention when you're making. Anyway, so we're going to line up those finished edge hems here and line it up all the way down to the bottom. And you see, I still have more than enough here to give it a lovely clean hem. Then we're going to stitch this together on both open sides, give it a hem, and we're going to be done. How absolutely awesome did this come out? And it was so super simple to do. Plus, I still have those leftover faux pockets and that leftover fabric. So please do remember to let me know down below what you think I should make out of those things. And the wackier the better. And I will pick one and I will create a tutorial for it. But what I love about this is the fact that I was able to keep this original off-center kind of button placket here, and I can wear it like this too if I want, or I can open the whole thing up. But best of all, I now have something to wear with my amazing 1960s vintage sandals, and these are super comfortable. When did they start making shoes that were so not comfortable? Oh, and it goes with my awesome sunglasses as well. But you know what else I did that I think is pretty awesome? I put together a compilation of over 20 vintage upcycling, refashioning tutorials for you. So you know what? Grab all of those 20-plus-year-old items that you have lurking at the back of your closet and let's get making. And we're starting off with fast flips. These are some of my favorite accessories and footwear tutorials from the past. And of course, as always, I will be redoing the voiceovers because back then the sound quality was not great. So this is my lickety-split lace necklace. And as you can see, you need a piece of lace, an old necklace, a couple of jump rings, and a pair of pliers. So just open up your necklace, fit your piece of lace in there, and put it all together with the jump rings and your pliers, and look how fabulous that looks. And you know what? I still actually have this. Look at young Sheri there in 2013. Trying to be a little bit hilarious, I guess, but this video is all about those shoes and how I painted them. And at the end, I'm going to show you how well they've held up. And for this, you just need your shoes, some tape, newspapers, and paint. Now, of course, you want to tape off all the areas of the shoes that you do not want to get painted, and I did also stuff the shoes with newspaper. Now, I decided to use my gloved hand and a sponge to apply the paint because these shoes were in fact leather, and I really worked the paint into the shoes. Now, I love this color, this lovely fuchsia pink, but it was boring, so I grabbed a cotton bud and dipped it in some white paint and then simply dotted all over the shoes to create some very cool polka dot Mary Janes. And then once everything was dry, I gave it a few coats of Varathane, varnish, sprulac, whatever you want to call it, and here we go. The present day, and I still have the shoes and I still have the dress, and they are both going strong and I think looking absolutely awesome. Let me know what you think. Next up is my happy Hankie circle scarf, and for this clearly you need a bunch of hankies. I used 6 hankies, and you want to make sure they're all approximately the same size. A lot of times hankies are not, they're always a centimeter or two off, but do the best you can. And here I'm pretty sure I'm explaining how much I hate ironing, which comes from, you know, awful chores from my childhood. Oh, and there we go. Iron your hankies. Okay, then you want to lay them all out flat and then go ahead and simply stitch them all together in a great long line. And once they're all stitched together, then all you have to do is sew the open ends together, and you have your very, very quick, very, very easy, very, very awesome happy hanky circle scarf. And you know what? This is, of course, another one that I still have and I still wear and I still enjoy it. And here's another oldie but goodie shoe improving project. So for this, you need a pair of lace-ups, your pliers, some sturdy yet thin chain, and of course some links to put everything together with the pliers. So the first thing you want to do is unlace your shoes and then start lacing them with the chain. But you're not going to lace them all the way up. You just want it to be tight enough to hold the shoe, but loose enough that you can still slip the shoe on. Then chop that chain to size and seal it up. And then repeat that whole process with all of your lace holes, and you have created the most awesome chain lace shoes. And of course, I still have mine. And of course, they are still absolutely fabulous. Our next stop is transforming some vintage dresses from frumpy to fabulous. And we're starting off with this dowdy skirt that I turned into a fabulous flapper dress. And did you notice I'm actually wearing the lace necklace from the very beginning of this compilation on my head for that flapper look? Anyway, what you need is a tiered maxi skirt, scissors, pins, and your sewing machine. I actually dyed this maxi skirt because it was an awful gray color. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you can pull it on and it fits over your chest, because that's how you're going to be wearing this. Then chop off the bottom tier and grab a t-shirt. And you want to grab a t-shirt because you're going to use it as a template to create a couple of sleeves. And as you can see, I'm simply lining up the sleeves with the tier of the skirt and then chopping it to size. It's so super simple. Then what you need to do is pin the right side of the sleeve to the inside of your top of your soon-to-be dress, and then simply stitch them together. And once I had done that, I did go ahead and hem up that raw chopped edge of the bottom with my rolled hem foot, and it looks absolutely adorable. And now we're going to quickly and easily update a Fugly vintage dress. So first, of course, you need your Fugly vintage victim and your sewing gear. Now, I flipped my dress inside out and chopped off the sleeves as close to the sleeve seam as possible without going over. Now, I had already decided that I wanted to have short sleeves on this dress, so I grabbed the sleeves and marked and chopped them to my desired sleeve length, plus a couple of centimeters for seam allowance. Then all I had to do was pop them into those armholes with the right sides facing and stitch them on. And look how fabulous this looks. Absolutely glorious. Next, I grabbed a dress that had my ideal length and laid it on top of the dress to be refashioned with the shoulder seams and collar lined up. Then, of course, I could just use the top dress as a template and chop it to what I wanted the length to be. Plus, as always, leave a couple of centimeters for seam allowance. Then I hemmed everything up, gave it a nice clean hem, and it's absolutely fabulous. And if you want this dress for yourself, it is in the Shop My Closet link down below. Today, I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to transform that frumpy frock you found at the back of your closet into two fabulous new dresses. So yeah, let's get making! For this quick and easy 2-for-1 project, all you need is your long maxi dress, a dress with your desired length, your scissors, and your sewing gear. So your first step is to simply lay your long dress on a flat surface, then place your shorter dress on top of it with the neckline area and shoulder seams lined up. Then all you have to do is mark where the hem of the shorter dress lands on the longer dress, plus a couple of centimeters for seam allowance, and then chop on through. If your dress is made out of a non-fraying fabric, like mine is wacky 1970s polyester, then you actually don't need to hem it at all, and you could be done. But because I'm me, I went ahead and searched in my stash and found some groovy vintage lace trim that I'm going to be adding to the hemline. And the fancy new hemline of my fabulously shortened dress is now complete. Here's a quick tip as well. If you ever have a wonky or not super straight seam, simply stitch some fab vintage trim over top of it, and you've not only covered up your wonky seam, but you've also enhanced the garment. So now let's move on to the bottom half of that dress. Now, first, I thought I will just add the bottom half to these kind of already half chopped up jeans that I have in my stash, you know, adding that as the waist area. But then as I was going through my stash a little bit more, I found this absolutely adorable half of a sweater that I had previously used for another refashion years ago. And yeah, I think creating an adorable little pattern mix mini dress is just about perfect, don't you think? So let's do that. So now to create an adorable little dress from the bottom part of a skirt and an existing top, all you have to do is pop the two of them together with right sides facing, and in this case, the raw edges lined up, and then match up those side seams pinned together. And I'm lucky because in my case, my sweater is super stretchy. So as I'm stitching, I can just simply stretch the fabric so it matches up. In some cases, if your top does not have a lot of give to it and your skirt is wider than your top, you will have to pleat up and gather that top edge of the skirt. Et voila! My adorable pattern mix dress is now complete. Hooray! Now, here's another quick tip. As you're stitching, make sure you use the zigzag setting on your machine because it allows the dress to have that little bit of stretch necessary to pull it on and off over your head. I love how both of those came out, and I do think it was a much better choice to add the sweater top to the bottom of that dress than to simply, attach it to that old pair of jeans. I got this absolutely stunning maxi dress, and like maxi dress, this is like so long it goes over my feet, which is awesome because it is also too small for me, so I can use some of that length to upsize it and hopefully create some awesome sleeves. So that's what we're doing today. For this awesome maxi dress upsizing project, all you need is your too tight maxi dress and of course your sewing gear. So before we get started, we must do some vintage tag appreciation here because that's absolutely beautiful. And as I always say, I wish they would still make tags like this with all the pretty embroidery. And this is gold thread. And I think it says "we Maikai," and I'm very, very sorry if I butchered that pronunciation, but this was actually made in Hawaii. And I love it so much. And going from what the tag looks like, it appears to be sometime in the 70s that this was made, just going from the information that it does have and the actual style of the tag. But again, it's just beautiful, isn't it? Editing Sheri here, and if you want to get smart about spotting vintage, doing a proper closet audit, and creating a wardrobe that actually works, not just takes up space, check out my Wardrobe Refresh Masterclass e-course. It has everything that I wish I had known when I started my whole sustainable style refashionista journey. The link is below, so go grab it when you're done watching me rework all of these wonderful vintage garments. So first I need to figure out how long I want my dress to be, and to do that you can either put it on and just mark it with a pin and eyeball it and guesstimate, or you can do what I'm going to do, and I've grabbed a dress that has my ideal length and I'm just gonna line up the shoulder seams like so. And look, this is another vintage beauty here. It's absolutely gorgeous. But then all I have to do is, mark it just a little bit below the hemline here with a pin to give myself some extra seam allowance. And then I will have my ideal dress length. Okay, so now the length is great, or it will be great once it's all nicely hemmed. But we can't do that until we upsize this. And you see, it really needs to be upsized back here. Now, if I can kind of... you know me, I just eyeball things. I don't really measure. And I think about, say, 30-ish centimeters should be enough. So if we do 30 centimeters, divide by 2 and add 2 side panels around 15-ish centimeters each, that should be enough for seam allowance. And then everything should be able to be closed and fit nicely here. And then we can finally hem the bottom. Okay, so I have my chopped dress and I have my chopped bottom here, and I'm just going to line these two up at the underarm seam here of my dress just to make sure I have enough length, and I have more than enough length, so that is fantastic. Now I can go chop this to size. So now I have my chopped bottom, which of course is still in a tube skirt shape, so it's still 2 layers here. And now I'm just going to measure, and I actually don't think I need 15 centimeters, so let's do 13. Just a couple centimeters less there. And now I can chop on through here, and that will create my 2 upsizing side panels. So now I have my 2 pretty equal side panels. I need to go open up the sides of the dress so I can insert them. Okay, so looking at the interior side seams of this dress, it appears like I can very easily just use my seam ripper and open up the side seams. But I'm not sure about the top, so we'll see when we get there if it's going to just be super simple to get through this bulkier fabric or not. Okay, so I have both of my side seams open all the way from the underarm seam down to the bottom hem. And it actually was super duper easy, I think, because this is so very, very vintage. The seam ripper just went through all the stitches like a hot knife through butter. So now it's time to add my upsizing side panels. And as always, you want to make sure you have the right sides facing, and just pop them together like so. And these raw fraying edges here, I'm just really going to try to stitch as far away from them as possible. And I think I'm just going to follow the original stitch line here, because then everything should be folded over nicely once it's done. But yeah, now I'm just going to go stitch all of this together and then repeat the whole process on the other side of the dress. How gorgeous does that look? That is like perfect. That is absolute perfection. And I think it's okay if the pattern doesn't match up perfectly. I don't mind. I think that looks absolutely wonderful. And I did try it on and it absolutely fits me. Now, I am thinking I want to use the rest of this chopped bottom to see if I can create some little sleeves here. Just some little swingy bell-shaped sleeves. So let's do that. So I'm just going to create some really, really simple sleeves here. And first I'm going to measure the armhole and say that's like 26 centimeters. Now I actually have quite a bit of the chopped bottom left, so I have folded it in half, and that means I have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers here. And now I'm just gonna take my measure, and I know I usually eyeball, but this time I want to be a bit more precise than that. So lay it on here, and I said it was 26 centimeters, so you know what, let's add another centimeter for seam allowance. And now I'm just gonna chop on through and create my sleeve fabrics here. Okay, so now I have 2 pretty even pieces for my sleeves, but I still have this left as well, which is fantastic. Maybe I'll make a bag out of that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So for these ones now, I actually should have done it inside out, but I didn't. So there's a tip for you. Always make sure you're cutting things when the fabric is inside out with the right sides facing. Anyway, so I now have this inside out with the right sides facing, and I'm just going to stitch straight down to close up the open edges here and create my sleeves. Okay, so I have my sleeves all stitched together, and I did go ahead and chop it off at an angle here just so it fits nicer into the armhole. This would be the underarm seam, and here you can see on this piece here, I did a straight stitch, then a zigzag, and then I trimmed the edge with my pinking shears. And these are just wonderful things that have been around for, I'm pretty sure, you know, hundreds of years, and they work really, really well to trim off the edges to help prevent fraying. Alrighty, so I have my dress inside out, I have my sleeves right side out, and I'm just going to pop a sleeve into the armhole like so, and there we now have the right sides facing as always. And I'm going to line up the sleeve underarm seam with the center of what should be the underarm seam on the dress now, but now there's upsized panels in there, so there is no underarm seam. And shake it all down, and now I'm just gonna go stitch this together and then repeat the whole process on the other side, and then we're gonna see what it looks like. Are you ready for this? La la! Look at those adorable sleeves. 1 and 2, and I've given it a nice clean hem, so let's go try it on and style it up. You guys, seriously, again, another one that was totally successful and came out so much better than I thought it would. I was really worried that the sleeves weren't going to work, but once again, my Refashionista brain was successful. So I'm so pleased, and I didn't have to hem up the sleeves because I used the original hem of the dress. Fantastic. And look, zipper is done up. Everything is fantastic. And now let's upstyle some vintage into some absolutely fabulous shirts and blouses, starting off strong with this oldie but goodie for transforming a scarf into a fab floaty top. So all you need is a large scarf, scissors, a too big t-shirt, and of course your sewing gear. So the very first thing you want to do is take your scarf and fold it in half lengthwise and then widthwise. So you're going to have 4 layers. Next, chop out that folded corner to create a neckline. Always chop less and try it on, and then chop more if you need to. Then once that's done, just give it a nice clean hem and grab that too big for you t-shirt and line up the collars. Now, this is what you're going to use to create the general shape of your top. So you want to pop a pin into the scarf at the side seams and underarm seams of your t-shirt, and then simply stitch straight up from those pins to create your side seams. Then all you have to do is stitch up the bottom to create your sleeves, and your fantastic top is floaty, fabulous, and finished. Hey, today I'm going to show you how fantastically fast and easy it is to transform that thrifted frumpy dress into a fantastic pussy bow blouse. For this quick and easy project, you'll need your frumpy thrifted dress, a length of fabric or a scarf that coordinates well with the dress. I'm just going to be using the fabric belt that came with the dress, your scissors, and your sewing gear. Your first step is to simply chop the dress to your desired blouse length, giving yourself a few centimeters of seam allowance. Once you're happy with the length of your blouse, then go ahead and fold that raw edge under and give it a nice clean hem. Next, flip the blouse over, lay it on a flat surface, and grab that fabric strip that will be used for the bow tie. Now find the center of the back of the collar, and depending on what kind of collar you have, you may have to pop it up, and then go ahead and arrange the fabric centered on the back of the collar and pin it in place. So now you have to decide exactly how you want to stitch your fabric to the collar. You could do just a really simple straight stitch just to hold it on so then it can be tied around the front, or the more secure version, of course, is to stitch it all the way around following the original stitches of the collar. I decided to do one simple stitch down the center, and then I simply followed the original seam of the collar and stitched all the way around down to the other side to create a very secure bow tie. How groovy did this come out? I'm so happy with this. And it's another fab blouse that looks absolutely wonderful with my thrifted vintage high-waisted trousers.
Hallo, mein Name ist Frau Ingeborg und I am the producer und director for Refashionnista Sheri. Now, she recently got this dress from the thrift store, but it is not her style at all. It is my style. It is not her style. So today, she is going to transform it into something fantastic for herself. So let's take a look.
For this awesomely quick, frumpy dress transforming project, all you need is your dowdy dress plus your sewing gear. Now, I just want to have a little appreciation shout out here for how gorgeous actually these sleeve cuffs and buttons are. I mean, clearly this dress is from maybe the late 60s, early 70s, and it is 100% handmade. You can absolutely tell from the interior stitching and everything else that this was made made with love in somebody's home. And this is another reason why I love vintage items so much, is they always have a story with them. And if something isn't quite your style, like this really is, from the pattern to the length to everything, it's very, very frumpy, in my opinion, and I would not wear it as is. But I think once I get these funky embellishments done, of which I have more than a few ideas here, it's going to look awesome. But do let me know down below, what do you think about, you know, kind of frumptastic vintage items? Do you get them on purpose like I do so you can refashion them into something that you'll actually wear, or do you kind of avoid them when you are out at the thrift shop? Let me know down below. Alrighty, so you can see I now have my dress inside out, and I have it with the back facing up. Because this does have quite a long zipper on it, I am going to have to deal with that first before I start doing any chopping and embellishing at all. But I do want to make this into a top, so I do have to figure out how long I want my top to be. And of course, there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can put it on and then simply mark with a pin the ideal length you'd like for the top. But for me, I think I'm going to use this super simple method and simply grab a blouse that I like the fit of. I mean, come on, how absolutely amazing is this vintage beauty here? We are going to take this blouse and use it to create the length of the dress. So I'm just going to line up the shoulder seams and the neckline. And then I have a nice little pin here, and I'm just going to pin about 1 centimeter or 2 below the bottom of the blouse, so I have some room for seam allowance. So I actually thought that this zip was going to be super duper long, and I was going to have to, you know, stitch a little zipper pull stopper and then chop on through, but see, my pin is here. So I actually don't need to do anything with the zipper at all. But if you're doing this and you do have to somehow chop through your zipper, absolutely, before you do any chopping, figure out where your zipper is going to hit, and then simply do like a very simple looping stitch around the teeth of the zipper, and that can act as a temporary or permanent new zipper stopper on the bottom, depending on how you're going to hem it up at the bottom. So now all I have to do is chop on through and then hem up the bottom. So now that my shirt has a lovely clean hem and it's exactly the length I want it to be, let's start with the ruffly embellishments. So to make my life a whole lot easier, I am first going to cut off the hemmed bottom of the chopped skirt part of the dress, and then it's already hemmed up. It's already folded over, hemmed, and I don't have to then chop pieces, re-hem it, turn into a tube and all that stuff. It's already done for me. So let's chop this and then we can get going. So this is now all chopped and ready to go, but I just wanted to share with you one of my absolutely favorite things about using vintage polyester fabrics, and that is the fact that you can cut them and look, it's not fraying. Look, even I use my fingernail here, it is still not fraying. So technically you actually do not need to be hemming up the raw edges if you don't want to, which makes this type of fabric absolutely perfect for doing no-sew refashions. Okay, so I have a couple of ideas here, and I think this is going to be more than enough to do everything I want to do. So the first thing is to create kind of like a ruffle type of bib here, and then I was thinking maybe to put some cool vintage buttons down the center. What do you think? I don't know. We're gonna give it a go. And then the other idea I had was to add, let's ruffle that a little bit up here, add some ruffles here just on the shoulder seams. So let's get going. Let's start with the sleeves actually, because I think that's going to be a little quicker than faffing about to make the bib here. So first, all I'm going to do is remove part of the shoulder seam on each sleeve. And I've started this one about 4 or 5 centimeters down from the actual top of the shoulder seam here. And then I'm going to go 2 or 3 centimeters past the top shoulder seam along the back as well, so I can insert my ruffles. Okay, so I have both of my shoulders open pretty darn evenly, and I have cut 2 equal pieces of my bottom hem fabric, and now I'm just gonna create those ruffles. And I was thinking, let's maybe try to do them in there, but no, we're not gonna do that. I'm going to do my nice little pin tucks like I always do, like so, and then I'm going to stitch my ruffles first, so then I can simply insert them and sew them on. So I have my very, very simple, basic little shoulder ruffles now done. Now all I'm going to do is pop each of them into the open shoulder seams with the right sides facing, the raw edges lined up on the outside, and this folded edge is going to be facing the inside. So then when everything is flipped right side out, it will look, hopefully, as it should. Now all I have to do is go and stitch it together, and then we'll flip it right side out and see if it worked. Okay, I've got the ruffles stitched to the shoulders. Now let's flip it right side out, and oh my goodness, I think it did. Look at that. How cute is that? It actually worked, and oh my goodness, that's so super cute. Okay, now let's figure out how we want to do kind of the bib area. Okay, so I have this piece left. So what I was thinking is to cut it in half. Okay, let's do that. Just going to cut out this big bulky bit here. Okay, so now I have 2 pieces, and I'm going to go lay one on top of the other and stitch the raw edges together. Alrighty, so I finished my little kind of ruffled collar, and I think it came out pretty good. Like, all I did was stitch those 2 pieces together, then fold it over, and added a couple of vintage buttons, and now all I have to do is center it and stitch it on. But I think I'm gonna hand stitch it on because my poor old machine is really not liking this thick vintage polyester. Okay, I have it all stitched on, plus the shoulder ruffles came out so well. So let's go try it on and style it up. La-la! And the shirt is finished, and it is fabulous, except this fabric keeps twisting. It should be here, and it keeps twisting to that side, and I don't know why. So if you have a solution to that, I don't know if it's a little bit too wide somewhere, I don't know, or maybe it's just the fabric and I'll just have to live with it, I don't know, but I love this result. We're gonna do something that's green, which is why I have my green nail polish on. I have these 2 gorgeously vintage tops that definitely need some work. So let's start with this one here. It is fabulously 80s. Look at that amazing tag there. But it fits weird, and the crisscross is weird, and so I'm gonna figure out how to make this faux wrap top fit me properly. And then the second one, I recently thrifted on a super sale day, and I was like, wow, this is so amazing. But when I put it on, none of the buttons actually match up with the buttonholes, and this is very, very clearly handmade here. And yeah, I'm gonna see how I can fix this one up so I can actually wear it. Okay, so I think we're gonna start with this one because the idea I have is pretty simple actually for this, so I hope it's gonna work. But as always, we must do some vintage tag appreciation here. And this, I remember this brand from growing up in Canada in the 80s, and it is made in Canada, and it's 100% Dacron or Dacron polyester. And yeah, so of course, you know, you can wash it, but don't do anything else to it because it will definitely melt. Okay, so when I flipped this inside out, I immediately spotted an issue. And I don't know if you can see that, but this is so off center here. So if the tag is in the center, and here we have the shoulder seams, this shoulder seam is longer than this shoulder seam. So right there, that's an issue, and it's definitely not helping. With the crisscross here is also totally off center. This is very strange. But then on the bottom, this part here, the front part on the bottom, it was stitched on. But the back part, this was all like one knit piece here. So I am at a loss at how this was supposed to be put together so it was gonna, fit properly, especially for those of us who have a bit of a generous chest and, it tends to push out wrap tops. So I think my best bet for my first step is to simply chop off this ribbed bottom and this thick seam, and then the wrap part will be totally free and open, and I'll be able to figure out what to do next. So you can see here the bottom is chopped off, and I've just set it aside for now, but I'm not sure if I'm going to put it back on or not. We'll see. But here on the corner, it is still attached. So I grabbed my lovely vintage seam ripper, and I'm just going to carefully remove these threads, because although this fabric is really strong and heavy and sturdy polyester, on the edges here, it's already starting to fray. So just going to be very, very gentle so I don't make it fray anymore. So it is now totally open, and I have the top on inside out, and I've been trying to figure out how I want this to be, and I thought to myself, I could simply grab my stash of fabric belts that I save, because I don't like having belts like this that come with dresses and jumpsuits. I don't like wearing them together, so they all go in my stash, and I use them for other things. So I remembered I had this rather adorable one that actually has green and white, and I thought, I wonder if I just stitched this all the way around on the bottom here, on the bottom hem, then I could just make like a proper wrap top, right? Like that would be kind of cute, and it would wrap, and that would be great. But I don't really like wrap tops. I'm not a big fan, so I'm not going to do that. But there's an idea for you if you want to fix a wrap top that isn't fitting you correctly. Okay, so I'm going to take my two front pieces, and I'm going to fold them over each other. I'm putting the white side down first because this is on inside out, and I want this one to be facing outward. And I'm just gonna get it to where it looks okay, and it's not too wrinkled up, and it's pretty centered. I've put a pin there, and I think it's wise to also put one on the bottom just to hold it in place, because I have to really carefully take this off of my head now, and then I'll see you back over at the table. Okay, so I have this side all held in place with easy to remove sewing pins, but this side here was of course flippy flapping around, and I don't want that when I'm stitching. So I went ahead and held it in place with a couple of safety pins, and now I'm gonna go stitch this together. Okay, so you can see I now have my top right side out because I finished stitching the inside part here, and I did use a tight wide zigzag stitch simply because that stitch allows the fabric to have the bit of stretch needed to pull it on and off my head. And I've pinned this flippy flappy side in place, and now I'm going to go stitch that together. Okay, so it is now all nicely stitched together, but I'm not liking how this is looking here. So I grabbed this fab vintage trim from my stash, and I'm going to stitch this all the way around and cover up this kind of messy looking stitch here, and also add some detail around the collar. Then to finish off the bottom, I don't think I want to put this on again, so that's going to go in my stash. But I do think it would look adorable to have some lovely lace trim around the bottom hem. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so the other shirt is finished, and it looks absolutely freaking adorable, but I'm gonna wait and style them both up at the end of the video. So let's move on to this one. And I really don't know if you can see this, but like all of these buttonholes are terrible and not even. And instead of redoing the buttonholes, it seems like the person then, like, look at this, it's like hand stitched there where there was a mistake buttonhole, but they put snaps, I guess, to try to hold it closed properly, and on both sides the seams are like blowing out. So this shirt really, really, really does need some work. I think the first thing I'm going to do is remove the buttons and remove the snaps, and then we're going to figure out how I'm going to fix these buttonholes, because they really are not spaced evenly even, and this one's really close to the edge, this one's really far from the edge, so yeah, we got to figure this one out. Okay, so I got all of those buttons and snaps off, and really this, I don't know at all what this person was doing when they made this, but whatever, you know, I mean, they tried and that's great, and we can all only do our best, but they've added an extra panel of fabric here, and I don't know why, but this is what some of the buttons were on, so maybe they upsized it with this. I think I'm going to take that off, but first let's sort out the buttonhole area here, and as I said before, all of these are at kind of really uneven different locations here. So I went in my stash and I found this lovely vintage lace. And so I'm just going to add this to the button placket here all the way down and cover up the existing buttonholes so I have a fresh canvas to start with. So you can see here, I have finished stitching on that lovely piece of lace to cover up those unsightly buttonholes. And then I went ahead and I restitched the interior seams. And you guys, I've been doing this for what feels like hours, because every time I thought I was done with stitching a seam, I would notice another one that needed to be restitched. So this actually took me a lot longer than you guys have been watching this video. But I did also remove this weird piece that was just randomly hand stitched on there. And like you can see, that really doesn't look very nice at all. But it is now all nicely hemmed up. And the good news is that this is actually big enough that I'm pretty sure I can just stitch up the sides here in the front and leave a bit of an opening, and I can put it on over top of my head. So that's what I'm going to do right now. This is absolutely fantastic, and this one is also absolutely fantastic. So let's go try them both on and style them both up. How totally adorable did this one come out? It's still a little bit wonky here because the shoulder seams are different lengths, but I can handle it. It is definitely a massive improvement from what it was before, and I really think that the trim here finishes it off perfectly, and the same here on the bottom. It is just, it's gorgeous. I love it, and it's still very 80s, and it's still very, very vintage. There was two shirts, right? So I gotta go put on the other one. Just a minute. And this one has come out just as awesome as the first one, but in a totally different way. Like, it's a different style, right? It's a style you wear with hats. It's time to create some outerwear with some hilarious characters.
It would be a crime to not stick around and see what Sheri's gonna transform this awesome 80s blazer into.
For this fantastic 80s updating project, you'll need your retro blazer, your seam ripper, and your sewing gear. So your first step is to oh so carefully remove those sleeves with your seam ripper. Now, take a look at that. Lining, exterior fabric, and a shoulder pad that is 1, 2, 3, 4 layers thick. Holy 80s! And then all you got to do is fold in the raw edges of those armholes and stitch them around. Now, you could be done, but if you notice, I used red thread to stitch up my armholes because I'm gonna dye my funky vest red and then get embellishing. Now, unfortunately, my groovy vest didn't come out as brilliantly red as I had hoped, but it still came out a pretty reddish orange color. So I went ahead and raided my stash and grabbed this 1980s dress belt, which matched perfectly. It's got red and orange and yellow in it, so fabulous. And I stitched that all the way around the collar and lapels. Then I went ahead and bound the armholes and then replaced the boring button with this bit of vintage bling that I've had in my stash since Germany. And voila, perfection! How totally awesome is my cool, oversized vest?
Hello? Yes, that's right. Today, Sheri's going to show you how easy it is to transform a boxy blazer into something that's fantastic to wear for the coming spring weather. Okay? Bye-bye.
For this fantastically fast, oh-so-retro project, all you need is a boxy vintage blazer, your seam ripper, iron-on patches, your sewing gear, and of course your trusty iron. So your first step is to simply remove those huge shoulder pads that give the jacket that terrible boxy shape. And to do that, all you got to do is grab your seam ripper and figure out on the inside where the shoulder pads are and carefully open up those shoulder seams. And you should then be able to pop the shoulder pad out of the small hole you have made. That's huge! Then all you have to do is use your seam ripper again and carefully detach the shoulder pad from the interior lining of the blazer. Now that those massive shoulder pads are removed, I'm going to go ahead and grab my trusty needle and thread and hand stitch those little shoulder openings closed. How much nicer are those shoulders? So much softer and not at all boxy looking anymore. So now the next part is the funnest part, deciding where exactly you are going to put your groovy patches. Now I think I want mine going down the lapel here. Once you're happy with the placement of your patches, go ahead and grab a nice thin piece of scrap cotton fabric. Place it over top of the first patch if you have more than one. Let's move those out of the way so they don't get ironed. Grab your iron and press. Give it a check every so often and make sure it is actually getting stuck down, and then any little corners that aren't stuck, iron them again. Once you have one patch secured to the blazer, then go ahead and add your other ones using the same method. Arrange them. Once you have the next one there, remove the extras, cover with the cotton, and iron. Sometimes the heat adhesive that's on the back of the patches isn't the greatest quality, and if I notice that it's kind of coming up on the corners, I will go ahead and do a quick hand stitch around the outside of the patches just to keep them secure, and then I don't have to worry about them falling off when I'm out and about. How fantastic is this transformation? Totally easy. That took me less than an hour to do the entire thing, and it's awesomely cool. And I love my rainbow unicorn lapel.
Oh, hi, y'all. Y'all gone and caught me fresh out of the shower at my dressing table. Well, today, Sheri's going to show you just how simple it is to transform that old vintage but super patterned bathrobe from the thrift store into a fantastic new frock fit for the summertime. Now, pardon me, y'all let me get ready now.
For this fabulously fast vintage transforming project, you'll need your groovy thrifted bathrobe or dressing gown, scissors, and your sewing gear. So your first step is to simply try it on and decide what length you would like your dress to be.
Luckily, my dressing gown has buttons on it, so I could easily just look in the mirror and figure, hey, I just want it to be right below the second to last button. A quick and easy way to chop your robe to your ideal dress length is to simply grab a dress that already has your ideal length, lay it on top of the robe with the shoulder seams lined up, and then go ahead and chop on through using the bottom hem of the dress as a guide and giving yourself a centimeter or two of seam allowance. If you don't want your dress to still open like a bathrobe, then go ahead and stitch those two front pieces together, following the seam down from the bottom of the neckline opening to the bottom of your chopped hem. I actually want the option of being able to wear this as a cute little overcoat, so I'm not going to be stitching the opening closed at the front. And then go ahead and give it a nice clean hem, and your fabulous new to you vintage dress or overcoat is complete. So now the next time you're at the thrift store and you spot a groovy vintage dressing gown, bathrobe, or housecoat, snap it up and transform it into a fab new dress that doubles as an overcoat.
Oh, hello again, me little puppets. You've just caught me making a fresh pot of tea. Anywho, today the lovely Sheri's going to show you just how simple it is to transform that frumpy thrifted vintage dress into a fabulous trench-style coat fit for the chilly fall weather. So stick around for that and get making.
For this relatively fast and easy project, you'll need your funktastic vintage dress, and this should be maybe a size or two too big for you, just so you can wear it as a coat and your clothes will fit underneath it. Some bias binding, your seam ripper, your scissors, and your sewing gear. If your dress has a back zip, then go ahead and remove it carefully with your seam ripper and then stitch up the open edges. And then go ahead and chop straight up the front of the dress to create the front opening of your soon-to-be trench coat. Create a quick and easy coordinating belt for your trench coat by simply chopping off the bottom hem of the dress. And then all you got to do is simply hem up those raw edges, or do as I did and bind them up with a contrasting trim. Give the bottom a nice clean hem, pop it on, throw on the belt, and your fancy trench-style coat is complete.
So if you have a boring boxy blazer at the back of your closet and you want to make it cool, Sheri's going to show you how to do that today. How to make it into kind of a, I don't know, bell sleeve situation. Not really sure what she's going to do, but let's take a look, eh?
For this fast and fancy project, all you need is a boring blazer and the leftover chopped bottom from a shortened dress. So your first step is to simply chop that dress bottom into two equalish pieces, and then fold them in half with right sides facing and stitch up that raw edge on the side. And then once they are stitched together, simply flip them right side out and marvel at how gorgeous your soon-to-be bell blazer sleeves have turned out. Next, grab your blazer and lay the sleeves flat. Then snag one of your bell sleeves and line it up with the bottom hem of the sleeve. And chop on through. You may want to give yourself a little bit of seam allowance here, but I don't think it's entirely necessary with this one because the blazer sleeves were actually a bit too long for me. Now, because my blazer has a lining, I went ahead and hemmed that up first so it wasn't kind of fraying all over the place when I was working on the rest of the sleeve. And now I have popped the chopped sleeve into my bell sleeve fabric tube with the right sides facing and the underarm seams lined up. Now I'm just going to go ahead and gather all of this excess fabric up into some nice little pleats and then stitch it together. And then once it's all stitched together, flip it right side out and admire your beauteous bell sleeve, and then go repeat the whole process on the other blazer sleeve. I mean, how awesome did this come out? I think I shall be transforming more blazers in the future with all of the leftover dress bottoms that I have lurking in my stash. And last but not least is one of my favorite 2-for-1 tutorials, transforming this vintage maxi dress into 2 amazing new-to-me garments. For this quick and easy 2-for-1 project, all you need is your crazy long maxi dress, a dress that has your ideal length to use as a template, and your sewing gear. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is remove this little ruffly lace that is on the chest, and it's going to be super duper easy. You can see here it was just hand stitched on. So all I have to do is find the end and really carefully pull that out, and you can look at that. It's just pulling right off, super duper easy. I don't even need my seam ripper. I can just gently pull the thread with my fingers, and then it will be off. Now, I know when I shared this with you guys when my thrift score video, some of you said, oh, please don't remove this lace, but I really don't like it. And I'm the one who's going to be wearing this. So, so I'm going to make it to my taste and style, which is something that you should always do when you are refashioning for yourself. Please, please, please do not let people tell you how to dress. Dress in whatever makes you feel good when you are lounging around the house or going outside. It's all up to you. You make your own unique style. Okay, I think that looks so much better with that distracting lace gone from the chest area. Now let's shorten this to our ideal length. And for that, you need your template dress that has your ideal length. And yeah, so all you got to do is line up the shoulder seams and the underarm seams if you can. It's the shoulder seams that is most important though. And then mark the bottom of your template dress onto your too long dress with a pin. Don't forget to add a couple centimeters of seam allowance and then simply chop on through. Okay, so I have my dress cut to size plus a couple of centimeters for seam allowance. Now, something that I always like to do when I am hemming up the bottom of a dress with a lining is to first hem up the exterior fabric, because then that way I know exactly how much shorter I have to hem up the lining in order for it to be hidden behind the exterior hemline seam. I am so pleased with my hemming job here. The stitches might not be super duper straight, but you know what? It lines up exactly as I wanted it to. The exterior fabric, the lining fabric, totally perfect. Now let's move on to the next tutorial. So now I have the chopped bottom left over. And first I thought, oh, I'll just stitch these together, add an elastic waist, and I'll have a cute little lace skirt. But then I thought, no, I don't really wear skirts, and I don't want to do that. So I looked in my stash, and I found this fully lace kind of sweatshirt, and I thought, hey, I can stitch this to the bottom of this and make a lace sheer dress that I can wear my funky vintage slips under. So that is an option. But then when I brought it over here to the table to start filming, I discovered these trousers that have very weird bottoms on them, and I thought, hey, I wonder if I could make these into some funky kind of sheer bell bottoms by adding this lace to the bottom of the trousers. And I think that is what we're going to do because it's going to look cool and these colors look awesome together. So let's get started. So as you can see, I have my lace piece inside out and I have folded it in half as evenly as possible. This is not a wonderful folding fabric. So it's as even as I can get it. And then I'm just going to cut it along the fold here. So I have 2 equal-ish pieces. Okay, so I now have 2 pieces, and each piece has an open edge, which I just cut, as well as the enclosed edge. And now I'm just going to go stitch each of those open edges together to create 2 tubes. Okay, so now I have my 2 bell-shaped tubes, and just thinking about it, these would actually make really good sleeves. But yeah, forget about it. I have far too many bell sleeves as it is. And yeah, if you want to know how to make bell sleeves, I shall link down below to my DIY sleeves playlist, because there's a whole bunch of different versions over there. I just love a good bell sleeve. Anyway, on to the bell trousers though. Okay, so you can see I have lined up the kind of finished off edges as evenly as possible. Again, this is not an easy task to get everything as lined up as I can. So I'm just going to give it a shake and then smooth it all. And up here at the top, it is totally not even at all. So I'm just going to do a gentle curving cut across the top to even them up so they are pretty much going to be the same length. Okay, so I have my trousers inside out, and I have folded them in half and laid them flat with the legs as evenly lined up as possible. So now I have one of my lovely lacy bells. And because these trousers are a little bit too short, I'm going to take the hem of the lace here and just extend it a little bit beyond the length of the hem of the trousers. And let's pull this here. Now I'm going to chop my trousers to the right length. And these are almost done, which is great. So now I have one of my bell tubes, and I'm just going to pop it over top of one of my trouser legs with the right sides facing and the chopped edge of the trousers lined up with the chopped edge of the lace bell. Okay, now comes the fun part, and you just kind of gotta do a bunch of pin tucks, if this is what you want to do, to line up the fabrics and make them all even together. And as you know, I love doing pin tucks because it's just really, really easy and relatively quick, and I really like the result. If you want a more in-depth tutorial for how to do pin tucks, I shall link it down below for you. But now I'm just going to continue doing my pin tucks all the way around until the fabric is all even. And yeah, then I'm going to stitch it together, and then we will check out how it comes out. Okay, both sides are stitched on, and I am very excited to flip them. Let's have a look. Oh, that looks so cool. Oh, that is just perfect. Let's go try everything on and style it all up now. I am overjoyed with my fantastic, shortened, gorgeous, double bell sleeve dress. I can't, again, another one that came out so beautifully, and it really wasn't that difficult. The lace was a bit picky to sew, and of course the lining was like 100% super slippery, very, very vintage polyester, so that was a bit of a challenge, but it came out so perfectly. You can see, fits me like a glove. It is absolutely stunning. But even better than this dress are my absolutely fantastic bell bottoms. I think I just created my favorite pair of trousers, and I will definitely be making more because how easy was that? And what a fantastic way to use the chopped bottoms from Shorten dresses. Like, can you imagine how cool that would look on jeans with some really crazy cool patterned chopped bottom of a dress? It would be fantastic. Mr. Skelly has decided to join me for the lovely outro. And so from Skelly and from me, Refashionista Sheri, I cordially invite you to join my rockin' Refashionista revolution over at refashionistasheri.com. And that is where you will find absolutely everything from my freebies to my wonderful virtual closet audits. And that is where you and I will talk to each other and you will show me all the things that you would love to transform in your closet. And I will tell you exactly how to transform them and then put together a wonderful PDF file, which will then contain everything we talked about as well as all of my recommended tutorials. So steal of a deal. It'll be down below for you. Go ahead, visit there. And until next time, from Skelly and I, stay safe, stay well, and we'll catch ya on the zig-zag.
This is Confessions of a Refashionista.